For all verified facts, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello and welcome. Bangladesh has completed and is celebrating its 50th anniversary as a country. There are many events that are happening that are now gathering steam as we speak. But more importantly, as we look at the 50 years, is the sheer achievement that Bangladesh has to showcase both on the economic and social front. On the social front, this country has made tremendous strides in tackling many specific social indicators ranging from maternal mortality to newborn mortality to education to health. And on the economic front, as is well known now, Bangladesh is a leading exporter of ready-made garments, the second after China, and over $30 billion. It has also, on per capita GDP, overtaken India last year. That figure may get adjusted a little bit, but the fact remains that Bangladesh has grown tremendously and is also now moving or ready to move out of the LDC or least development country status, which presents opportunities as well as challenges of its own. So to understand what lies there today and ahead, both economically and socially in Bangladesh, and what it means to other countries in the region, including in India, I'm joined by two leading experts from Bangladesh. Abdul Matlub Ahmed, chairman of the Nitol Niloy Group and also president of the India-Bangladesh Chamber of Commerce, and Dr. Debapriya Bhattacharya, a distinguished fellow at the Center for Policy Dialogue, as well as on the UN Committee for Development Policy, from Dhaka. Thank you both for joining me. Mr. Dr. Bhattacharya, let me start with you. When you look at some of the economic and social landscape today, and in the context of what's been achieved in the last 50 years, what lies behind and what lies ahead?
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show, and also appreciate the question you have put forward. But in order to understand how it has been achieved during the last 50 years, what we have achieved and what lies ahead, I think it's important to go back to our point of departure, that is immediately after independence. If you go through all the literature, you would see there was an initial pessimism about the viability and robustness of Bangladesh as a nation state. We started off with 10 million refugees returning from India, as you can understand. I had been one of them. Then we, of course, had all the demolished bridges across the country, which was done during the liberation movement. We had no foreign exchange reserves. The Pakistanis took away all the planes even. And we have all the factories demolished and abandoned, and there was a huge issue of feeding this 7.5 million people, 75 million people. So, and there were people who would say that Bangladesh does not have any geostrategic value. It doesn't have any revealed source of energy, and obviously they're going to eat themselves. So. And now you look back 50 years, all those initial pessimisms have been proven wrong. Bangladesh has not only developed, but has become a robust country, and it has been upheld as a development model by many. Now, if you see the successes, of course, we are now feeding more than double the population, and we have trebled our productions, food productions. You have just mentioned about the maternal and neonatal mortality rate, and all these issues are very much there. Our exports, which was the jute products were the main. Now jute is a very distant third or fourth, and every second T-shirt in the world is now is sourced from Bangladesh. So it is a spectacular success, and the remittance income and everything else, we are doing that, and infrastructure progress, which is all there. So if you ask me what exactly went behind it, I think there had been over time an emergence of a Dhaka consensus about what the development should be. I think notwithstanding all the ups and downs and very tragic events, including the killing of the father of the nation, I think a consensus has emerged that the private sector should play a dominant role in the whole thing. And no wonder you have Matlub Bhai our eminent entrepreneur and business leader, Mr. Mutlub Ahmed, with us today. He will talk about it much more possibly. So apart
Right.
from the role of the private sector, I think the other things which have come through is that Bangladesh will not be developing as a closed economy. So we opened up to the whole world. We went for liberalization, we deregulation within the country and also outside, along with privatization and other things. I think the other third point which is there was an overall consensus. Without building the physical infrastructure, connectivity, getting access to energy, we won't be able to go very far. And the fourth issue or fifth issue would be that emphasis on human development, that health and education are critical. And the last point, which during the last 10 years, which we have pursued, is that the robust growth will not raise all the boats. There will be some left behind. So the social protection issue has become also important. So if you summarize, you look at Bangladesh consensus about development policies, that role of the private sector, linking to the global world in all ways, you build your infrastructure, you improve your human development situation, and also look for social safety net for your citizens. I will
Right.
sum it up in that way. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that. So, Mr. Ahmed, let me come to you now. You're a large business conglomerate in Bangladesh. Your key, let's say, enterprise is in automotive, and you also partner with Indian companies like Tata Motors and Hero Honda. So, tell us about what are the challenges that you see, even as a country as a whole, not just for you, but as you maybe partially transition from being a largely ready-made garments dependent export industry with a competitive edge in that.
Thank you very much. It's a very important topic, especially when Modi ji is in Dhaka and both the prime ministers are traveling together, and we are discussing this issue today. Basically, if you look at Bangladesh, as Dr. Devopriyo elegantly explained to you, the meteoric rise of Bangladesh from nothing to wherever we are now. Basically, what I feel that we have certain advantage in Bangladesh. Unlike India, where you have so many states and one center, and some of the states could be not the ruling party. So there creates a lot of issues. And then some of the issues are like foreign and other things are lying with the center, while the domestic tax and other issues could be some here, some there. So it's very complicated way of ruling a country. But Bangladesh, fortunately, is a one solid space now. And we have primarily one language, and a majority is one religion. And also, mostly I would say one culture. So having said that, it's much easier to grow in such a nation where everybody works together. If you look at the clarion call of our founder of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, on his call, the whole country went into, war with Pakistan. So this is the advantage of Bangladesh, where you could see the development that has been done by especially the current government, where we have now electric power more than we need. So we, in the business and industries, we need basically three basic things. The power, which is gas and electricity. Then we have the land. So if you see the power, we have got electricity. In the gas, we are now getting the LNG connections. So the gas is again back in line. And if you look at the land, we have got 100 special economic zones, where India also has got 2 economic zones where they can fill it up with industries. It shows that that all the requirements that we needed for a fast industrialization of the country is now in place. And today, being the 50th anniversary of our country's independence, I can safely say that the next 50 years would be a tremendous growth for the nation, because we are just right now on a takeoff position. And I believe that if we look towards the private sector and the alliance with the government in trying to grow the nation with private sector assistance, and with think tanks like CPD and others supporting the knowledge based that we need. So we need, it's so difficult that to get from other sources honest guidance to the nation and to the business people.
Right.
That helps us. So I believe that the future is extremely bright for Bangladesh.
Right. So can you touch upon the specific composition of industry? I mean, just for the background of those who are watching, I mean, you are in automotive and have been for many years. Bangladesh's competitive advantage is, however, largely in ready-made garments. That advantage will go as you start losing some of those tariff advantages, and I'll come to that to Dr. Bhattacharya as well. But how do you see that transition, if at all, from, let's say, a ready-made garment dependent country to other industries, maybe including in automotive or electric vehicles, another area I understand you're looking at?
Well, first of all, I must say that all the countries have faced such situations. You have to move on. You cannot be dependent on only one industry and one sector. The government had also been looking around to change other industries in exports and to develop the domestic industries. COVID-19 has actually taught us that domestic industry is vital for a nation. Agriculture is vital for a nation. So these two are the areas where the government is working on: agricultural processing industries, agriculture, investment in machineries, etc., etc. So what I can tell you, that dependence on garments does not mean that we are moving away from garments. Of course, we are going to raise garments export to $60 billion. So we are going to grow there, but we are going to grow the other areas parallelly. And that includes tanneries, pharmaceuticals, glass industries, plastic industries. There's a numerous industries which are growing parallelly with the garments. And even for the garments, there is backward linkage and forward linkage industries which is supporting the garments industries as such. It is not only sewing. Sewing has now become a very small part. We are producing many things now. When we started garments in the 70s and 80s, we had produced nothing. Even the buttons we had to import. But now, if you look at the backward linkages, it's huge. And these are all local industries. So what I would like to tell you, that we are not going to discourage growth of garments. No, the garments will increase, but parallelly we are moving into so many items, including steel. So that is what we are looking for.
Right. Dr. Bhattacharya, you've been writing and I guess speaking on the LDC transition or the LDC graduation, as Bangladesh will lose some of its benefits. The number that I remember seeing is that you would lose 8 to 10% of your gross export gains as Bangladesh loses some of those tariff advantages. What's your sense, and in the context of garments, of course, so what's your sense from your vantage point in this transition, and how Bangladesh will grow its garment industry and overcome this challenge that it will face most probably in 2026?
Thank you for that. I think Mr. Matlub Ahmed has already given some perspective on that, because on the issue of diversification. So if Bangladesh loses some of its LDC specific preferences, and please remember, we are not going to lose it immediately. It will be till the end of this decade where it will come by. So we have a preparatory time for that. And if we do that, I think the most important thing is that how much of the international support measures, the market access would continue beyond that time, because you are a non-LDC, but doesn't mean that all your problems are gone. They still remain. So you may need international support measures for that. But which is more important is that what type of domestic reforms you do in order to sustain that shock. So, for example, as Matlub Bhai has just mentioned, that the garments will grow. Of course, garments will grow. And then there is the market access issue in the European market, where the GSP Plus is being negotiated. So it will demand a much more stronger reform, deeper reform within the country, whether it is labor rights, whether it is, the green economic issue, or it is more regulatory transparency. So all these issues will be very much there. But we will also have to support other items which are coming up: pharmaceuticals, electronic, IT related, ceramics, and many leathers, jutes are there. the other point which has come out very strongly, in order to sustain this, you have to remain competitive in the market. So in order to remain competitive in the market, you will have, what we need to do is to improve our labor productivity. And technological innovation is very important, deepening of technological innovations, because we have seen that Bangladesh is a labor abundant country, but still we are going for a more capital intensive growth because technology demands more capital investment. So how do you really put these people back into the growing 2 million people coming into the labor market? That itself is very, very important. And the third point I would like to say is that there is no going out, no escape from the fact that we need to improve our tax collection. I think this is an issue in all our neighboring countries elsewhere, but Bangladesh had been particularly, outlier, having such a robust growth rate, but a dismal performance on tax collection. So if we do not improve our tax GDP ratio, and when the foreign aid is gone, and if the FDI does not flow adequately, we will be in a difficult situation. So I see one of the major tasks in the future is, of course, diversification, labor productivity growth, and of course, domestic resource collection. All these things would allow us to go through this challenge.
Right. Mr. Ahmed, do you see more hope for manufacturing? And you did mention steel. If so, then where in manufacturing do you see Bangladesh having a competitive advantage, assuming Bangladesh, as you said, is going to remain a more open country economically for both inflows and exports of products?
Well, let me explain to you our position. If you look at our foreign policy, we are friends of all, enemies of none. And we are fortunately benefited by the Indo-China business and economic war that may be there. And we will get benefit from the US-China economic war. So we are a small nation, and our stability is there for a pretty long time. And most of the world now think Bangladesh as one of the best destinations for investments. That is why now we are getting huge offers in our SEZs from Korea, Japan, even China, and of course India. So what is happening is, because of our foreign policies and because of our advantages given to the foreign investors, we are seeing a large amount of foreign investments flowing into Bangladesh. Earlier there was no power, no land to do all that, no gas, but all that has been solved. And it is now coming to a situation where these foreign investments will come into the situation. So what I see, one simple example, you can see that while t-shirts is to come from China, now Bangladesh is exporting t-shirts to China. So we have become, or we can become, so competitive that even China cannot defeat us in the cost prices. And that's happening in many things. Very soon we'll become one of the largest plastic producers of the world and supply plastic products all around. Although we don't still have those basic plastic pellets to produce the plastic materials. So having said that, because Bangladesh is a small nation, well knitted, and I would say a very strongly determined government to promote business and to sell the country to the world as an investment place, to express to the world that yes, come here, you will surely make money. Tatas are with us for last 30 plus years. Heroes are with us for last 7 years. They have made money every year, even though they may not have made money in their own country. So this is the advantage of Bangladesh, which we are explaining to the world. Come here, definitely you will win. There's no way that you can go back not smiling.
Right. Dr. Bhattacharya, Mr. Ahmed referred to, this being a one culture, language, predominantly one religion. Now, that can be an advantage, but could that also be a disadvantage? I mean, in some ways?
Having agreed with Matlub Bhai, I would just nuance it a bit. We are definitely one nation, definitely, but we need also recognize that the nations are composed of multicultural and multi-ethnic and multi-religious culture as well. One does not exclude the other. So we do have the Chittagong Hill Tracts tribal people. We have the plainland tribal people in that way. So the Adivashis, for that matter, we have our own Dalits as well, and along with that, you have 10% at least religious minorities in this country, where the Hindus constitute 99% of them. So we are a Bengali nation which is holistic in linguistic terms and everything else, but at the same time we do have our multiculturalism and multi-religious approaches over there. So we have essentially carried forward and consolidated the nation building along with that. So my one of the parting thoughts would be, if you allow me, that when you look at Bangladesh in the next 50 years, will India be part of that future more than it was in the past? That is a question I would leave to your audience. If you look at Indo-Bangladesh relationship at this moment, and with the Honorable Indian Prime Minister on our soil till now, I would like to say that India, has been part of our birth from 71. And since then, with various political ups and downs, both in your country and in my country, we have traversed quite an eventful journey. Now, during the last decade, our relationship has stabilized and went upswing and experienced an uptick. The issue is whether, in order to take it forward, what do we do with the old agenda, unsettled agenda, and how do we take advantage of the emerging second generation agenda? Our unsettled first generation agenda is not allowing us to get up to the speed with the second generation agenda. What do we essentially mean? It is, as you know, politics and people's what happens in the country is not about statistics. It doesn't depend people like me who give numbers. It is about perception, which matters much more. So there is a perception within the country in Bangladesh that Bangladesh has never received its rightful share from India across the decades, in particular during the last decade. The Tista water is, of course, a sticking point. The border killings are a sticking point. The non-tariff barriers for our exports to Indian market are the sticking points. I call them traditional old agenda. But unfortunately, if this remains unsettled, unresolved, then the next step, what we want to go forward to, just to conclude, that we will, with the connectivity which we have provided to India, and Bangladesh wants to have to Bhutan and Nepal, we won't be able to really capitalize on them without the investment, trade, and connectivity together and take it to a newer heights and go for a comprehensive economy partnership over there. So my appeal to you through your colleagues, through your audience, that we need to settle our old dues and so that we can move forward in the next 50 years.
Right. Okay, Mr. Ahmed, last word to you. You also talked about greater integration, multimodal transport integration, particularly northeast of India and Bangladesh. Now, tell us about the one or two things that you'd like to see for greater economic integration, and also to the extent that it ties in with Bangladesh's own ambitions for the next few decades.
Well, if we look at the trading part, we would like the river connectivity to be utilized more, the train connectivity to be utilized more, and we would like to also ensure that Bangladesh can freely invest into India for at least 10% of whatever we export to India. And that should be freely available for us to reap the benefits of the Indian economy. And lastly, what I would like to tell you that the BBIN and the other regional blocks that we are trying to create should come into being as soon as possible, so that the business and the industry can take advantage of the political closeness between India and Bangladesh.
Right. That's a wonderful note to end on. We've run out of time. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya, for joining me, and hope to speak to you soon again. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.